Our customers today, which are Global 2000 customers, are very concerned about their privacy. So they have within the RFPs and the contracts we sign with them, rules around privacy and also rules around we have to contact them if we have an attack. So now you're actually communicating at the moment that the attack is happening. And these are rules that are set up to be very, very stringent. So I think that's one of the big issues around the trustworthiness of your company. If you do get attacked, and you have to communicate immediately, and you can't contain, or even if you can contain, you still are wearing the scarlet letter of R, right, for the ransomware attack. And then, of course, will you lose that customer? That's very highly possible. Will you lose faith within the community that you actually service? That's another issue that's a big concern.
One of the real impacts of ransomware is truly looking at cybersecurity more holistically from the perspective of, one of the best strategies is, of course, to prevent an event. However, as even the poll in the beginning of our session showed, it is quite reasonable to expect that the assumption is not the if, but the when. Right. So once and if and when it does happen, of course, the focus is with detecting. We don't want to wait until the day of 250 or 280, depending on the type of the attacks, to really figure out that there's something dormant in the system, and understanding how to best remediate, having a very strong incident response plan, having it tested, making sure that the troops are always ready to be called if and when needed, and understanding that cybersecurity is not just a cybersecurity business. It really is a business. It's an enterprise effort. So having the leadership, the business on board, and understanding that it's one of those pillars that keeps the organization safe, secure, and healthy on many perspectives.
The boards love to read what's happening in the world and compare themselves. And so clearly ransomware is everywhere, and the boards see that. And the questions that we ask ourselves is, are we doing enough to monitor? Are we looking at the right things? Do we have the right protection? And so those are questions that come up often. And the boards are concerned about reputation, operational stability. And so we're constantly looking at what is it that we're doing to help ourselves stay out of that ransomware spotlight, if you were, that seems to be getting broader, as you said, every day. From an organizational standpoint, I think some of the CIOs will attest to this if you have it. In order to get cyber insurance security now, you have to jump through so many hoops, fill out so many things, comply with so many standards that the insurance companies have raised, that it's becoming increasingly more difficult. And so I think the boards now are saying, if not cybersecurity, then what else can we do? Or how do we complement cybersecurity? And you want to leverage third-party vendors that can help you out in this regard. And so that's kind of filling that gap between insurance companies and leveraging the vendors.
We have a combination of our own cloud environment and then SaaS providers. So we look at it from the dependency we have on those SaaS providers who can wreak havoc if they have a ransomware attack. So one is any of our SaaS providers, we do a pretty detailed security review to make sure they have all the IT general controls that they should have in place and all the processes if they were to get hacked. Number two, we take a look at, what is our dependency? How critical is that service or application we're using? And how accessible is our data, and what would we do if that service became unavailable to us? And then third, what risk do you have of that provider being linked into your network? So again, if they had a ransomware attack, can it somehow contaminate your overall environment? So on our roadmap is really around the cloud and SaaS and how we're protecting ourselves from our own vendors, right? And particularly the SaaS providers.
I think the things that we're really spending a lot of time on is defining what pen testing looks like for our organization. For Secure Energy, we have, call it 140 facilities across Western Canada and down into North Dakota. And we have centralized, corporate office here in Calgary, Alberta. A lot of times when we think about pen testing, it's on the IT side of it. We've expanded that to look at the OT side of it. Within our operations team, we have adopted ICS, which is an incident command system, and how we respond to emergencies and incidents out in the field. We're adopting that within the technology arm as well, because how we respond to an emergency or an incident should be the same across our business. So and that brings in a slew of different resources, from communications through to HR, to finance, to whoever it might be who needs to be in the room to tackle a ransomware attack, right? That is that high level process. But then what we're also developing is, what is our IT playbook if something were to happen? How do we lock down? What are the steps that we walk through, the tactical steps to lock down our systems and limit the damage? And then let the ICS process lead us through that investigation and remediation. This is not an IT problem. This is an enterprise problem. And we need to make sure that we're walking in lockstep with our business to solve this problem or get ahead of it.
We've really adopted a defense in depth approach to looking at cyber in general, and it applies equally well to ransomware attacks and the risk of ransomware attacks. And I think the recognition is that at some point, we have to accept that there's going to be an attack. So we have to prepare ourselves, which we've done in many ways by working with multiple partners to look at the various layers that we can protect ourselves through, from external endpoint detection and remediation. We've looked strongly at our backup strategy, and this is one where I feel quite strongly that it's not just a question of being able to protect the data, it's being able to recover in a timely manner, being able to remediate the problem and recover. And so we take offsite backups on a daily basis as well, so that in the event of an attack that does actually impact us, we have that ability to respond and recover from backup. We run external red team assessments on a regular basis. And one of the areas where we're working quite diligently at the moment is really in terms of building out and testing a cyber incident response plan. The other area, looking at data and data encryption, making sure that as far as possible, we can protect ourselves. And I think I'll end on the topic that others have spoken about, and that is having a vendor management strategy. Ensuring that you're only allowing access to those vendors who need it, when they need it, with minimum rights.
For me, ransomware is really about operational stability, business continuity, because, anytime you've got a risk to the core business operations, I think the importance of making this holistic and really getting that key business stakeholder buy-in. But I think about it in terms of risk management and risk transfer. I think this really starts with hardening. And even before that, people. Do you have the right people and the right expertise to really harden your systems? If you've got the right restriction policies and the right hygiene in place, you've got the right encryption, you're going to reduce your attack surface and make the problem a lot more manageable. The thing that kills us with ransomware is the speed of the attack. And so are you prepared? Do you have the right automation and frameworks in place to be able to respond at speed? Are you exercising your IRP in practice? This is something we as a vendor put a lot of emphasis on early. When I was in the White House and President Obama really wanted to affect the landscape writ large, the thing that we looked at doing was, how could we make better data more accessible for risk mitigation and risk transfer? How could we help insurers deliver better policies and help the folks who are buying insurance drive down those premiums with better data? And thus was born the NIST cybersecurity framework as a way to get everybody on a single framework and allow for that insurance market to take hold. But as we've seen with the systemic risk, it is a big problem. If we can help with that data collection, if we can give the insurer a better sense of that holistic strategy, give them a sense of where that detection response instrumentation is, and feed that back in. And especially if the tier 1 tooling, least privileged practices are being enacted, that can help with the policy underwriting. But it is becoming pretty arduous, especially for smaller businesses, to be able to get the insurance premiums at this point. But I think you've got to have both risk mitigation, risk transfer, but it all comes down to the people And are you exercising this in practice, or is this just a plan that's sitting on the shelf?